Why is the Model Y? How is the Model Y? When is the Model Y? Today's video, we're going to be discussing why the Model Y exists and kind of debating that criticism that some people have given it, not exactly to the car itself, but more or less, why does it deserve its own letter? Why does it deserve its own line and brand of cars? Because honestly, how different is it in look and in feel from the Model 3? And when you look at the Model 3 and the Model Y next to each other, you can kind of see where people are coming from. So all those little details and theories about why Tesla decided to name the Model Y what they did and why they're giving the Model Y its own dedicated line, we'll be answering in today's video starting now. Now, jokes aside, of course, we all know Elon Musk wanted to make the lineup spell sexy. That has finally been accomplished. Elon, congratulations. But on top of that, we know that Tesla's going to be making more cars and more vehicles in the future. So why necessarily did a slightly variated version of the Model 3 need its own letter grade? Now, let's first off acknowledge how they're very, very similar, because some people out there may argue the Model Y totally different from the 3, but it's a lot harder to say that when you put them side by side. And notice that nearly like 70% of the parts that go into the Model 3 are the same exact parts they put into the Model Y. Not that the Model 3 is a bad looking car. I love the Model 3. That's my dream car. But honestly, how many differences are there really? What was the Model Y market trying to serve? Of course, it was those who wanted more seating or more cargo space in a vehicle overall. But as people talked about at the Model Y event, while yes, you can technically order the 7-seater version of the Model Y, it is not particularly spacious. However, it is an option that the Model 3 doesn't have. At the same time, though, it's not going to be a comfortable one for adults. Most likely going to be good for families with little kids that they want to sit in the very back of the car. Will be possible with the Model Y, but again, not ideal, and it's not even by default. You have to spend $3,000 extra, and Tesla's not even going to start manufacturing the 7-seater version until 2021. Whereas the rest of the lineup, basically long-range dual motor and performance models, those will be available in the fall of 2020. Those are the ones they're prioritizing, and then they're claiming in the spring of 2021, then you'll be able to get the standard range version. If you compare the long range and standard range versions to the range we have available on the Model 3, you'll see that they're quite similar. They're not that different at all. With the standard range Model Y, you have 230 miles of range, and with the standard range Plus, which is currently on their website the cheapest Model 3 you can buy, that starts off with 240 miles of range, which when you're talking in the scheme of hundreds and hundreds of miles of range, 10-mile difference is really quite small. 10 miles is literally just a little bit of battery degradation after a few years, probably even less depending on how the user is charging and driving their car. But range-wise, they're quite similar. Looking at the different performances, yes, the Model Y has to make some compromises because it is a larger car, likely a much heavier car, but you don't have to fall into it like you do the Model 3 because it sits much higher, so the drivers and the passengers can kind of easily slide into the vehicle, even though the standard range model is about $4,000 more than the Model 3. I will say it makes sense, and it's kind of impressive that the Model Y and the 3 would be similarly priced because parts-wise, there's not a lot of huge differences. The Model Y will certainly serve a market as it stands, but as many people have brought up online, why not just call it the Model 3 Hatchback Edition? Why can't announce the Model 3 Hatchback Edition instead of calling it the Model Y? Because with previous generations of Tesla cars, there have been some drastic changes for those full letter grades. The Model S originally came out, and then later the Model X. Totally different doors, different door handles, and a completely different look for the vehicle. Yes, they shared a lot of similarities that later the Model S caught up on, but the Model X as it stands is a very different experience from a Model S. Then the Model 3 was an even bigger design change because they changed the door handles, they changed the interior of the vehicle as well, and the whole front and back of the car. The Model 3 is not a hatchback, it's just a standard trunk, and the front of the vehicle is definitely swooping down a lot more quick than the Model S front, which has more trunk space, and the Model S is more of a hatchback. So because they were having to save a lot of money, they made a lot of different design choices that made the Model 3 very different from the Model S. Even though they were both sedans and they share a lot of features, aesthetically they look very different. Fun fact for you, the Model Y is the first Tesla vehicle that has the same door handles as a pre-existing Tesla vehicle. With the Model S, you had those door handles that slide out of the car. With the Model X, you have those door handles that you push in on with the Falcon doors. And then with the Model 3, we moved to those J door handles that you push in on with your thumb. The Model Y was the first Tesla that actually reused a door handle design. So that almost makes you wonder, like, okay, if it's really just a taller Model 3, why not just brand it under the Model 3 line? It's already so popular anyway. Why not just diversify it? Give the Model 3 some more configurations during checkout so people can go, oh, here's the Model 3, here's the base range, here's the base performance, but have a little toggle on the website perhaps that says also you can configure it to be a 7-seater if you get the hatchback edition, or maybe you don't need the 7 seats, you just want a taller, more bulkier car. Why not give that option? Well, while I think the people who are criticizing the Model Y for that reason, for mostly just the way it's marketed, I do kind of see why Tesla would want to separate it as a different car in the lineup, because Tesla thinks differently than most other car companies out there. They don't want a website that has all these different car configurations, all these different options between their models, because Tesla, just like they design their cars, they market them with minimalism in mind. Tesla wants to make sure that the checkout process is as simple as possible, and they probably would like to make it even more simple than it already is. Going as far to support Apple Pay during checkout when you configure your Model 3, or making things as simple as possible when customizing your car between the range, long range, and performance. In fact, there was a time before where they had rear-wheel drive long range that actually had more range in the vehicle than the all-wheel drive long range, but perhaps they were losing too much money on it, or perhaps they just wanted to simplify the Model 3 lineup a little bit more, make it easier for manufacturing. They decided to axe that option, so now there's a few people out there that have the rear-wheel drive long-range Teslas. They can go 325 miles, and currently you cannot buy a Model 3 off the website that has the 325-mile option now. It's maxed out at 310. Again, 15 miles of difference does not make a huge difference, but it shows you that Tesla is working really, really hard to make sure the checkout process on their website, whether you're on your phone or your desktop, is as simple and easy as possible. And given they don't want to get all of the different Model Y configurations between 7-seater or long range or performance all mixed in with the Model 3 configurations, for the sake of simplicity, they are giving that its own letter. They are giving that its own name. Even though, if you compare it to the rest of the lineup, the Model Y does share a huge amount of similarities with the Model 3. In fact, looking at the Model Y very, very quickly, you'd probably be able to confuse it with the Model 3 if you didn't check it out just right. However, there are a lot of design choices I'm glad they're making on the Model Y. Like, it seems that Tesla is starting to acknowledge that so many people are doing the chrome delete thing on their Teslas and getting them wrapped, or trying to put more of a matte finish on their vehicles, that Tesla is now directly advertising the Model Y on their website with no more chrome on the door handles or the window siding. Now they have more black matte finishes, which I think actually looks really, really good between the white models, the red models, and the blue models that they keep advertising it with. The matte finishes for the door handles and everything look really, really nice, and I'm glad that Tesla's actually seeing what changes and design choices people are going with on the road and deciding to just go ahead and implement those at the factory. That's good to hear with the Model Y. I kind of wish they could start designing the interior slightly differently than the Model 3. Maybe instead of that glossy fingerprint magnet center console that so many people have to put wraps around so that it doesn't get scratched up and doesn't collect dust so much. What if just at the factory they started manufacturing that little center console to have more of a matte finish so it wouldn't collect so many fingerprints and dust and get scratched over time? There's a whole bunch of little design changes like that I hope they'll pick up on, but the matte finish on the door handles and the window lining of the Tesla Model Y is encouraging to see Tesla listening and changing Tesla's design from the root now. But of course, now there's going to be that one guy that's like, oh, I liked the chrome silver finish. Why couldn't they leave that on there? I don't know. But ultimately, I think it's because Tesla is more of a Silicon Valley based company and they're focused more on the mental process of someone checking out a car and making it as simple and easy as possible and not giving too many options, not giving too many configurations, you know, having them behind the scenes. But if you just want to very, very quickly buy a Model 3, they're going to make sure that it's as simple and as straightforward as possible. Not too many pop-ups. And yeah, that's why they're okay with having the Model Y be its own separate category, even if it shares a shocking amount of similarities with the Model 3. So I know there's a ton of you watching this that are likely waiting on your Model Y or heavily considering it. For me, though, I would rather have the smaller sedan because I care more about getting that tiny bit extra range and also saving as much money as possible, because in my boat, the Model 3 is already on the higher end of cars I've ever paid for, so I don't necessarily need the bulkier space. I've driven a sedan for the past 3 to 4 years now. I'm totally comfortable with the 3, and if I wanted to wait for the Model Y to come out, it would probably not be available until the spring or summer of 2021, which is a little too far away for me, so I don't think it's worth waiting that much longer just to get a Model 3 that's slightly taller. But I'm sure that there's a ton of people out there that the Model Y is going to be perfect for, and I cannot wait to see one in person, and I'd honestly really love to drive one. So I know there's some fans out there that are planning on getting one. Likely by the time a lot of the fans in the audience start picking up their Model Y, hopefully I'll be able to meet you up in my Model 3 by that time. So let me know what you guys think of the Model Y branding and why they didn't want to bunch it in with the Model 3 by hitting me up over on Twitter or joining our Discord. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you guys in the next one.